What up guys, your boy Mike, aka New Yorker in the Philippines. And today's video, I'm going to go over the number one question I see in all of the comments of all of my YouTube videos. And that is, how do you make money here in the Philippines as an expat? So there is pretty limited options, I would say. But there's three main ways, in my opinion, that you can make some money over here. And in this video, we're going to cover those things, go over some options, go over some different avenues, and give you guys a better idea of how to make money here in the Philippines. Let's get it. Alright, so let's get number one out of the way. Let's start with the most obvious one, and that's going to be retirement pension. So if you've been working your whole life, obviously, at a certain age, depending on the country, you're going to get that pension. And then you bring it over here, you're going to live pretty well on that because your money is going to go a lot further, especially if we're talking US dollar. So pension is number one. I see a lot of people asking me, why did you move there in your 30s? Why didn't you just wait until, you got your pension, then you could have it and fall back on that? Well, the answer for me is it depends on the person, right? Everyone has a different life view. Everyone has different scenarios in their life. For me, I knew it wasn't going to work 30 years in America before I moved here. It just wasn't going to happen. I just have a different life path than some people. I don't know if I've talked about in my videos, but earlier in my 20s, I went through a big health scare. It was just, that's really talking down on it, really just kind of giving you the short run. It was a really big thing. And once I got past that, I just knew that I had to do the things I want to do earlier in my life because you're not guaranteed. And for me, I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it to my 60s. And that's how maybe, it might be a bad way to think, but it might be a good way to think depending how you look at it because life is a gift. Every day is a gift. It's not guaranteed. So that's why I moved here before I got my pension because to me, it's a risk-adverse thing, right? There's a financial risk if you move here without a pension. And obviously that is you have to find a way to make your money. But there's also a risk that if you wait to get your pension, life is not a guarantee. Also, when you're older, I might not enjoy it the same way as I would have enjoyed it in my 30s. Or depending on the person, like I said, you might enjoy it more. There's really not one size fits all. But as far as making money here in the Philippines, I will say that a pension is probably your safest option and your best guarantee. So if you've been working at a company, for example, 30 years, and you're 50, 60, and you're about to get it, your outlook's going to be different than someone that's in their 20s or early 30s, obviously, and it makes sense. So if you're close to the pension, I would suggest waiting out and getting the pension. But if you're far from the pension, you're a younger expat, don't let that hold you back, but give it consideration. You don't want to be financially irresponsible, but you also want to not base your life just on that. All right, so let's get to number two. All right, so number two. Number two is one that I thought would be pretty obvious, but apparently it's not that obvious based on everyone asking anyway, is working online. So working remotely. This is going to be probably one of those things that cover most people coming here. If you don't have your pension, this is the number one option, right? Find a way to make money remotely. So there's a few different options when it comes to this, right? So if you're lucky enough to be in certain fields, like for example, web development, cybersecurity, something like that, where you can work for an American company and take that career or job you have overseas and work remotely, that's even better, right? That's the most secure option. That's the best. If you're not so lucky, like I wasn't, because well, actually, my job before wasn't so bad, but it's not what I'm doing here. Before, in America, I worked as a sports photographer for ESPN, shooting NCAA college basketball. So, cool-ass job, a job I really liked, but not one I could really bring over here directly because, obviously, NCAA college basketball isn't in the Philippines, but you could always do photography jobs, stuff like that. But it had some value because it taught me how to market online, how to brand myself, and things like that are very helpful when you're trying to figure out what you're doing online. So when I first got to the Philippines, I actually was working as an English teacher. I'm certified as an English teacher, and that was my job basically. So did I like it? It was okay. Some students were better than other students. I didn't love it though. It wasn't my passion. I always thought I wanted to be a teacher, and I still do in some ways, but for ESL, it wasn't really my thing. So after that, I wanted to sort of do the YouTube thing, but when I first moved here, I didn't feel like I was ready to do YouTube yet because I see this thing where a lot of people move to a country, then they start their YouTube, and they're already just giving people advice, even though they've been here for a week or a month or whatever. So I didn't want to be that person, you know. I waited about 2 years before starting my channel, so I had feet on the ground, I had experience, and I could really give you guys some insight that I think is valuable. So if you're coming over here, have a job lined up, look for teaching, or you got to get creative. So once I got here, I realized that the teaching thing wasn't going to be for me, and I wanted to pivot into YouTube. So a lot of you guys are on my YouTube asking me how I'm making money. Well, I'm not making a lot of money, I will say that, via YouTube right now, but it is a grind, and it's going well so far since we've got a lot of followers, we've got a lot of views, unlimited videos, and it's something I'm going to put more effort into and focus on. But for you, that might be different. Like I said, there's going to be different avenues for different people. You have to get creative too. If you're a grinder, you can make it work because you got to remember you're not going to be making as much money here in the Philippines, most likely, but you also don't need as much money here in the Philippines. So you don't need to make as much as you did back home to sustain the same lifestyle. So just keep that in mind. Let me give you another example. So you have to be creative when you're making money here. You have to kind of make your own opportunities. So once I got into YouTube, that opened doors for other things like sponsorships, sponsored video partners. Then I also started doing things with real estate over here, making videos for them. And then I also started doing consults for people that are moving here, which you can check out in the link below. If you're moving here, you have questions. My videos, they cover a broad general topics, but if you want more one-on-one time, I am doing consults. I have a link below. But all those things branch off of one thing, and it's like you have to get creative with what you're good at. If you have a talent that you could translate online over the computer, more power to you because that's what you're going to need here. That's the same reason why Filipino workers go overseas and then send the money back, or they find jobs online. It's because there's not a lot of well-paying jobs here in the Philippines, and that's just the harsh reality of it. So you have to be able to have a skill that translates to online work, whether that's one thing or the next. That's going to depend on you. It's hard to tell you, the viewer, what you'd be good at, but just think about it like that. A skill or a service that you can do over the computer and reach people. Whatever that is, you're going to have to put some thought into it. But that's going to be a necessity for any digital nomad. All right, and then number 3. So number 3 is one that I think a lot of people overlook, but I think there really is good opportunity here, and that is to build a business. And again, like I said for number 2, what kind of business that is, I can't tell you because I don't know personally who's watching this video, their skill set. But think about what you're good at, think about what you can offer. And I think building a business here in the Philippines is something that's not as maybe intimidating as it first sounds. So let me get to why in a second, but let me talk about that. So people say, like, what business can I do? There's a famous quote from a billionaire that goes, what's the quickest way to make $1 billion? And that's to solve a problem that 1 billion people have, or offer a service that 1 billion people need. Obviously here, we're probably not going to be making $1 billion, but you don't have to. Again, you just got to make enough to sustain a good life, which is going to be a lot cheaper here than in America or Western countries. So, building business. Why I say building a business might be better here or less intimidating than it might first seem is because in the Philippines, labor is cheap, right? Employees are cheaper, and that's just the reality of the situation, right? So if you're hiring people, you want to get stuff done, it's going to cost you less money. There's also less permits needed for a lot of stuff. There's a lot of red tape in America that makes things a big pain in the ass. Things are generally easier here in the Philippines. And then my one point that I want to stand out is that, usually if you're going to another country and you want to make a business, you're going to be at a disadvantage because you're going to be competing with already local established brands. But here in the Philippines, it's different. Really, it really is different because if you're a foreigner, if you have a foreign business, a foreign brand, it's actually held on a pedestal to some degree where it's looked at as, I don't want to say better, but I don't want to even, I don't know the word, right? Not better, not luxurious, but there's something enticing about a foreign brand, right? Where this mindset is not my opinion. This is from people that I've spoke to. I have a lot of friends doing business here, and it's just the reality, like I said, of the situation is Filipinos sometimes value foreign brands more than local brands because they think the quality is gonna be better, think their products gonna be better, or maybe it's just like a pop culture thing where they want to like try it out. They think it's cool. You see it a lot with Korean brands here. You see it a lot with American brands, Australian brands. There's a certain allure to it, and I think that could be an important thing when building a new business because when you're building a new business, the hardest thing usually is getting that business off the ground, right? The first few customers, getting that traction, getting the ball rolling. And I think here in the Philippines, you're going to have actually the opposite effect, where a lot of times if you're opening the brand and you have good marketing, good word of mouth, and you can really sell it that you're something, you're a foreign brand, you're offering this, you're offering that, the quality is this, the quality is that. I think that actually you're not going to have that problem. I think on the reverse, you'll have a lot of people flocking to the business when it first opens to check it out. But you still have to make a good product or a good service because Filipinos are supportive, but they're not stupid, right? If you make something that is shit, they're not going to come back and do it again or buy it again or whatever, you know what I mean? So getting the business off the ground, I think you have an advantage here, really. But maintaining that business, you still have to do a good job. You still have to be a good business owner and make a good product and make a good service. But I do see a lot of people that are doing different things here, whether it's food. I think that's a big industry that there's a lot of holes in here in the Philippines, especially because there's like really a lack of certain American foods that you can come in. If you can make a good pizza, if you can make even just a good Americanized restaurant, there really is a void here for that. So, and even other stuff like Mexican food, there's not too many chains. There's just a lot of different places. I have friends back in Eastwood that came from Cali. Their name is Pachitos if you want to check them out. They did a food truck. They started off doing local like farmers market type things in Eastwood. Then they opened up a steady truck right in Eastwood. So there is that opportunity to grow, opportunity to build. So you just got to get creative with the business side of things. Those are my three main things. The reality of the situation is I have a lot of people asking me, what jobs can I do if I go over there? It's not really going to be like that, man. I got to keep it 100 with you. If you come over to the Philippines, especially if you're from a Western country, you're not going to want to work here for the wages that are provided. And that's not a diss. That's just the reality of the situation. I've said that a lot, but the reason I'm using that term is because, you don't want to talk bad about a place, but sometimes it is what it is, right? There's not a lot of high-paying jobs here in the Philippines. That's why there's overseas workers that live here, right? They want to live in the Philippines, but they go overseas to make that money, send it back to their family, and then they often retire back here. So if you're coming here, it's most important to have a plan, right? And then have a backup plan, and then be able to adapt because that's going to be a key thing. So save up your money before you get here. I would say at least $10,000 if you can American or more, but save up, have a emergency fund, and then have an idea in place, right? You might not want to do the job at first, such as like teaching or doing something more service oriented, but it doesn't matter, right? If you're a grinder, you want to go to Philippines, you want to move, you want to start a new life bad enough, you'll figure it out. And that's one of the things I want to just push into younger expats because even older expats too. I think finance is a big thing that gets in the way of moving. These big decisions, a lot of people worry about what they're gonna do. How am I gonna make money? And it's an understandable thing, but at the same time, you only get one life, And if it's something you want to do, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. You know what I'm saying? If you want to come over here, test it out. As long as you don't sell your house back home right away, you could always fall back, but it's worth giving it a try. So like I said, on this YouTube, I'm here to inspire. I'm here to put value into my videos by teaching you guys things, but I also want to give you guys some emotional input too, because it's not always a logical decision. Sometimes it's an emotional decision. There's a lot going into moving to a new country, but overall, those are the three main ways I would say you're going to be making money here in the Philippines. There probably are a few other ways, but those are the peak ones for me. So if you have any questions, like I said, you could always hit me up in the comment section below. I answer pretty much all my comments. If you need more detailed one-on-one time, if you're about to move here, you need some help getting a place, you need some help, getting situated, learning about how to get your money here, or you just need a guide when you get here, anything like that, you can hit me up. Down below, I have a link. You could do I do my consults. Like I said, I'll do one-on-one consults. I work with a few people already. Got them all set up for the move to the Philippines. One dude I met here in McKinley, got him all set up for the day. One day he was already done. I got a good network of realtors. I got a good network of people here, so I'll guide you, I'll take care of you. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. As always, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.